It was a gray day. The sky looked darker than usual, and a sense of unease surrounded Mount Golgotha. Among the crowd witnessing the crucifixion, there was a man. He was not just a simple spectator. He was a Roman soldier, a centurion hardened by war, familiar with pain and death. This man, as commander of 100 soldiers, had a clear task: to ensure that the execution was carried out without incident. For him, it was nothing more than another day at work, another crucifixion, another demonstration of the empire's relentless power. However, that day he was about to witness something extraordinary, something he would never forget. What this centurion did not know was that the man hanging on the cross before him was not an ordinary criminal. He was someone who bore not only the accusations of blasphemy made by religious leaders, but also the spiritual weight of all humanity. In this video, you will follow the journey of that Roman soldier, a man who began as an executioner and ended as someone transformed by faith. Stay with us until the end and discover how that cross not only marked one day on Golgotha, but continues transforming lives to this day. But before we begin, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Together, we can share this message of hope and faith with many more people. For a Roman centurion, duty always came before any feeling. They were known for their strict discipline, loyalty to the empire, and their ability to lead troops in the most difficult moments. The soldier who supervised Jesus' crucifixion was no exception. He had survived bloody battles and witnessed countless executions. To him, that scene was just another obligation. Brutal, yes, but necessary to preserve Rome's order. Nevertheless, that Friday, something felt different. As he watched the prisoner who was soon to be executed, the centurion noticed something he couldn't explain. Jesus didn't act like the other condemned men. He didn't scream. He didn't curse his executioners. He didn't beg for his life. On the contrary, he walked with a dignity that unsettled the soldier. In the praetorium, the centurion witnessed how the soldiers mocked Jesus. They placed a crown of thorns on his head and struck him with a staff, while mocking, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" It was a common scene before every crucifixion, but Jesus' attitude was not. He endured everything in silence, without hatred, without resistance. Imagine Jesus walking through the narrow streets of Jerusalem carrying his cross. He stumbled under the immense weight, and the centurion watched him closely. He had overseen many executions and knew that, generally, the condemned resisted until their last breath, fighting against their fate. But Jesus didn't. His calm defied all logic, and somehow it began to disturb the soldier who was trying to remain impartial. Even so, the centurion carried out his duty. He ordered a man named Simon of Cyrene to help Jesus carry the cross. For the Roman soldier, this wasn't an act of compassion, but a practical decision to ensure the execution could proceed as planned. Yet inside, a sense of unrest was beginning to rise. Who was this man who, even in the midst of suffering, appeared so firm, so unshakable? Later, as the centurion continued to supervise the fulfillment of the sentence, Jesus' deep silence was interrupted by the cries of the crowd. Some mocked, others wept. The division was clear. While the religious leaders stirred up hatred, small groups watched with tears in their eyes. When they reached the place called Golgotha, known as the place of the skull, Jesus was nailed to the cross and raised between two criminals. The centurion, as firm as ever, missed no detail. He was used to the desperation of those who faced the cross, screams, curses, desperate pleas. But Jesus didn't react like that. He prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." That prayer was etched into the soldier's mind. Forgiveness, forgiveness for those crucifying him, for the soldiers casting lots for his clothes as if it were a game, for the crowd mocking him without mercy. The centurion began to feel something he had never experienced. That was not the attitude of an ordinary man. Jesus' words pierced through the emotional armor the soldier had built during years of war and death. Then, something even more astonishing happened. The sky, which already felt heavy and hot, suddenly darkened at noon. It wasn't clouds. It was a supernatural darkness, as if creation itself were mourning. For 3 hours, the earth seemed to grieve. The centurion felt the weight of that unsettling atmosphere. He tried to maintain composure in front of his men, but he couldn't deny the obvious. Something extraordinary was happening. Suddenly, a powerful earthquake shook the ground. Rocks split, and a deep fear seized everyone present. The centurion looked at Jesus on the cross. Even in the midst of torment, that prisoner maintained an astonishing serenity. And then, with one final cry, Jesus gave up his spirit. The earth seemed to scream. In Jerusalem, the temple veil was torn from top to bottom, a visible sign that something sacred had just occurred. The centurion was overwhelmed. Every fiber of his being told him he had witnessed something divine. And the question that tormented him was, who was this man, really? As the crucifixion reached its most heartbreaking moment, the centurion kept looking at Jesus with a mix of awe and respect. Amid shouts and mockery, he heard Jesus speak once more. This time, Jesus entrusted his mother's care to the beloved disciple. "Woman, here is your son." And to the disciple he said, "Here is your mother." Even hanging on a cross, enduring unimaginable pain, he expressed no hatred or despair. His concern was not for himself, but for others. The crowd kept mocking him. "If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." And some religious leaders shouted, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself." Even the criminals crucified next to Jesus joined in the mockery and insults. But Jesus remained silent. His serenity was not resignation, but an inner strength that the centurion could not comprehend. "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." These were the last words of Jesus before he bowed his head and died. For the centurion, it was as if the world had stopped. He felt something he didn't know how to explain. The darkness, the earthquake, the torn veil of the temple. Everything seemed to be the cry of creation itself, proclaiming that this man was not like the others. Jesus' phrase, "Father, forgive them," echoed again and again in the centurion's mind. Who could offer forgiveness in the midst of such brutality? Who could show so much love for those who were harming him? Something inside the centurion began to break. The hardness that defined him as a Roman soldier, formed through years of war and executions, began to crumble. And it was in that moment, after everything he saw and heard, that the centurion spoke words that would change his life. Truly, this was the Son of God. By saying this, he wasn't only acknowledging a truth greater than himself, he was also breaking with everything he had learned as a soldier. For him, strength was shown through power, through domination, through blind obedience. But before the cross, he had seen another kind of strength, a strength born from humility, sacrifice, and unconditional love. That declaration wasn't just a reaction to the supernatural. It was the conclusion of everything he had witnessed, the silence of Jesus, his words of forgiveness, the dignity with which he endured the torture. It was as if, for the first time, He could see beyond the brutality of his duty. After that day, the centurion was no longer the same. As the crowd began to disperse, he remained there, staring at the horizon, with a mind full of questions and a heart overwhelmed. He had started the day as just another executioner, a man who obeyed without questioning, but now he felt transformed. Those words, "Truly, this was the Son of God," were not spoken at random. They were a deep confession born from the soul, a certainty born from pain, from what his eyes had seen and his spirit had felt. The silence of Jesus, his words full of compassion, and the heavenly signs had shattered everything the centurion believed about strength and power. And now he began to reflect on his role in it all. He had overseen the death of an innocent man, a man who, instead of hatred, showed mercy, a compassion the centurion had never witnessed, not even on the bloodiest battlefields. That night, as he returned home, the weight of guilt accompanied him. Who was that man I helped crucify? And why did he ask for forgiveness for me? These questions would not leave him. That day, which was supposed to be just another grim routine, had become a turning point. In the days that followed, the centurion wrestled with a whirlwind of emotions. Jesus' words kept echoing inside him, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." He couldn't forget them, nor the impact of those moments. Even while performing his military duties, one question haunted him. How could a man facing death show so much love and mercy? Then, rumors began to spread. Jesus' tomb was empty. Some said they had seen him alive. When the centurion heard these stories, something awakened within him. He remembered Jesus' final words, his gaze, his peace, and he understood that everything made sense. The accounts of appearances of the man he himself had seen die only reinforced the conviction already burning in his soul. That day on Golgotha, he didn't just witness an execution. He witnessed an event that transcended history, something eternal. The days that followed brought no relief. His mind returned again and again to Calvary, to that face, those words, that cross, and something inside him drove him to seek answers. He knew he could no longer be the man he once was. The hardness of his heart, cultivated over years of battles, was dissolving. When he heard that Jesus had risen, he wasn't surprised. Deep down, he already knew. That man was different. For the centurion, that moment marked the beginning of a new journey. He was no longer just a Roman soldier. Now, he was someone touched by grace. Someone who, for the first time, was beginning to understand the true meaning of faith, forgiveness, and redemption. The Roman centurion began his day as just another executioner, cold, obedient, hardened by war and duty. But at the foot of the cross, he witnessed something that changed his life forever. It wasn't just the earthquake, the sudden darkness, or the torn temple veil. It was love. The love of a man who, in the midst of the cruelest suffering, asked for forgiveness for his enemies. The love of a Savior who turned death into hope. And that love broke the heart of a soldier, teaching him what redemption truly means. Today, you and I also stand at the foot of that cross. We can look on, remain indifferent, or allow ourselves to be transformed. Because even today, Jesus continues to say, "Father, forgive them." And he continues to touch hardened hearts with his eternal love. If this message touched your heart, subscribe to our channel Secretos Biblicos, where we explore the hidden power of Scripture, powerful revelations, and messages that transform lives. Turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any videos, and watch the ones on screen right now. Each one contains deep teachings that can change the way you see the Bible and life itself. See you in the next video, and may God bless you.